So we just listened to Labour Party National Chairman Julius Abure speaking on the shock and surprise of the judgment that was handed down by the Supreme Court just moments ago, saying that despite the flaws associated with the Presidential Election Tribunal, they had no other choice but to move on. And of course, the Labour Party are disappointed and dismayed, but will be trudging on and remaining optimistic for what the future holds for the nation. He went on to say that some of the great lessons had been learned, and it's a clear testament that Nigerian institutions are not working and are slipping towards a dictatorship. The executive, judiciary, and legislature, in his opinion, have been hijacked, unfortunately, for our democracy. He also added that he had it on good authority that the government had marked key labor leaders for vilification, intimidation, and harassment using security agencies in order to oppress some party members and stifle the team.
Well, so now we'll bring in the Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Akin Osuntokun. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
You're welcome.
Now, You're welcome. Now, we just saw the reaction of the national chairman of the Labour Party, but we'd still like to have your own reaction to the judgment given by the Supreme Court.
Well, I can offer perspectives to it. First and foremost, we can say that the ordeal is over for both of us, for those of us who are seeking justice and those who are supposed to dispense justice. You know, the court today and the judiciary proceedings in general amount to little more than fulfilling all righteousness. I never really expected that the judiciary would do anything, you know, other than what the status quo, you know, dictates. So I'm not, there is only the only difference between now and when the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal gave its own, between then and now, the only difference is that one is final. What they did essentially, you know, they just essentially affirmed, you know, all the decisions, all the positions taken by the tribunal. You know, to use the words of the presiding judge, he said he found it unassailable. So really, there isn't much to say, but what has always struck me is that, you know, if you have 7 or 8 grounds of appeal, for me it is counterintuitive for all the grounds to fail. But at the same time, I do understand that, look, if one of them, just one, were to succeed, then the president, you know, his case has fallen flat, just on the ground of, on one ground alone. So, of course, my belief is that the judiciary, you know, find themselves under duress, you know, to try and, you know, affirm or confirm, you know, to dismiss all our grounds of appeal. But the thing about law is that I think it was Chief Awolowo who said it, that you can argue from both sides of the mouth. And he referred to Akintola, his deputy, who was a lawyer, that he either convinces you or confuses you. So the law has that kind of dimension that if I want to take a position, even if it's wrong, I mean, you can always find arguments for it. But you see, look at a place like Abuja, for instance. It makes perfect sense for me, the meaning the drafters of the Constitution will have attributed to that. Look, Abuja is Nigeria's melting pot. Abuja is a micro Nigeria. So it follows logically what you seek of Nigeria at the macro level. That is totality of Nigeria. 2/3, 15%, sorry, 25% of the 2/3 of the votes cast in the 36 states. It makes sense to me that the same logic will be replicated for Abuja. I mean, Abuja is mini Nigeria. It's that is the most that's the most logical way to look at Abuja. And if I were that, you want it, that is the intention. The intention we have for Abuja. In fact, when the site was being chosen, it was deliberate. I remember Justice Akin and some of them who identified Abuja. You know, the criteria, the qualifications was that it is central, belongs to nobody, you know, and then it can organically evolve, you know, as a mini Nigerian, you know, territory. So why that logic seems to elude, as I said, I don't expect somebody who wants to dismiss the appeal to look at it from that perspective. So that, I mean, that's the most, because this is what they are saying. And of course, I mean, you have this idea, you know, the infallibility of INEC, that whatever INEC says or does is infallible. That to me, you know, look, we had an ambiguous situation in which INEC, and of course now as upheld by the judiciary, essentially came to argue against what it is, with what the INEC itself promises to predicate the credibility and fairness of the election on. You know, that is IREV and beavers, you know, all this kind of thing. Towards which hundreds of billions of naira was committed. If it doesn't matter, if you can dismiss it with so much levity, then why do you need to have it in the first place? I mean, if we are saying that it will not make a categorical difference, you know, to the conduct of elections in Nigeria, okay, then so why introduce it? Now, and commit hundreds of billions of naira, you know, onto it? But Nigeria, and of course, you see that there is mischief, a lot of mischief in that. The INEC officials, beginning with the chairman of INEC himself, Okoye and all of them, prior to the election, you see how they were singing the praises of IREV, beavers, this and that, you know. Now, as I said, the essence of the presentation of the case of INEC and IREV, with regards to IREV and beavers, they said, look, IREV is just is a viewing portal for the public. It does not collate, it has no bearing on the collation, it doesn't affect the result. So, okay, so why then do you need to do it? Right? But you see, the perspective we have got into the ends of the road as far as the rule of law is concerned, I don't know how many Nigerians are going to look at this process that we have gone through, and have faith, you know, in the capacity of the judiciary to decide cases objectively. But you see, I think I mentioned it on your program before. What we have in Nigeria really is a systemic crisis in which all Nigerian public institutions are equally implicated. Look at the National Assembly. The immediate backdrop to this judgment was the National Assembly deciding to buy Land Cruisers worth 160 million naira per person. You know, this is now in a country in which the effects of, you know, floating the naira, you know, removing the oil subsidies is ravaging people, you know, and then it's on rampage. And then you have the National Assembly, right? Just look, it's such a gross behavior. In the first instance, and I've worked in government before, you don't have this situation of attaching personal vehicles to an individual public officer. It doesn't happen. You can have a pool of cars on which anybody wants to use it, you go and pick it from there. Secondly is that, okay, the worst case scenario. If you want to buy a car, must you buy one that is 160 million naira? I'm sure that innocent the motor makers in Anambra, we can give them a much more better deal than that. Of course. So look, the excuse, and you look at the excuse again, that the ministers have 3, so you are saying that somebody is behaving badly. Your excuse is that, no, somebody is behaving more badly than me. You know, it's not that what I'm doing is right. It is that a colleague, your fellow, government officials in the executive, they are more, reprobate than you are. This is what they are saying. I mean, this is the kind of Senate that you have to look at the National Assembly. Look at the Senate President, right? He has an active case with the EFCC. Easily one of the most notorious, accused with the EFCC. Must you make that kind of person the President of the Senate? And of course, since he has become the President of the Senate, he has been acting according to the kind of person that he is. It's like knowing somebody is a thief, and then you put him in charge of money, and then the guy goes ahead and steals money. This is the case of Papabio. His immediate and non-immediate background towards
Mr.
position.
I would very much like us, not to attack personalities, because it's against our profession. We will not attack personalities. But I'm going to ask you about the obedient movement. What becomes of the obedient movement after this ruling? Do you see the obedient phenomenon getting stronger?
Get me right, please. Listen, please. I'm not attacking personalities. The person I'm talking about is a public figure. He's the President of the Senate. I'm not attacking his person. He took a decision that is manifestly terrible. And you are saying that I'm attacking it. How? How am I attacking his person? Did he himself not say that he had a case with the FCC? How did he get to be Senate? He was running for president. One of the most, bad days of the Nigerian judiciary. A man was running for the president. All of a sudden, he left the in the same breath.
Your point is certainly noted. Your point is certainly noted. But the focus of this interview is the Labour Party's reaction to the Supreme Court ruling, and also what becomes of the Labour Party after this ruling, which is why I'm asking you what happens next with the obedient movement. Can you sustain the OB phenomenon for the next 4 years? Would you be setting up structures, for possible victory in 2027? Let's talk about the obedient movement and the Labour Party.
No. Please, you cannot dictate to me how I answer questions. At any rate, the Labour Party chairman has spoken to you about the Labour Party. I have nothing to add to that. The obedience you are talking about, they are functioning as they should be. Many of them went up in the Labour Party. So other than that, I don't know what else you want me to say. Is that I'm not asking me here to come and be evasive or whatever.
Could I put it in other terms?
Yes.
There's this saying that says if you can't beat them, join them. But obviously in this situation with Julius Abure just having his speech a couple moments ago, he said that that the Labour Party would be fiercely acting in its role as opposition to this government. So the question now is, which is the way forward? In what, how would that manifest itself in terms of what we have on ground today? As he also mentioned, Nigerians are going through an extremely hard time at the moment. So opposition is needed. How is the Labour Party going to represent itself post this judgment?
But again, I will repeat what I've said. Yes, the man who should say so has said all what needed to be said about Labour Party. My own position is is to take a more comprehensive look. I don't isolate our case at the court from the rot in the general society, because you are not going to get anywhere. That's the approach that doesn't make any sense. You have to look at it holistically. Okay, we have concluded the rule of law, the judiciary aspect of it. Does that take the problem away? Or you want us to predicate something on nothing, right? The fact that this has been concluded has not affected the context, the situation that gave rise to this kind of behavior by the Nigerian public institutions. That is what you need to face. Unless you do it, programmatically, holistically like that, you are not going to get anywhere. Nigeria was rated as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. The implication of that is what we are seeing all over the place. And until you address Nigeria, the situation in Nigeria holistically like that, you are not going to get anywhere. It is still, but restructuring, you can't. There's no way you can run away from constitutional reforms in Nigeria. That is the root cause of that problem. Until you face that, you are not going to get anywhere. The obedient movement that you mentioned, look at how they made the mess of what the young people, the younger generation did. It is the status quo that we have that allowed that to happen. There are people who go out and, young people going to vote for the first time with the passion, with dedication of wanting, and then their aspiration being cut short, by individuals, So it's not until you do that, you are not you cannot isolate, it's difficult for me to project what will become of the obedient going from here on, right? Nigeria is, there is no way, you can't take anything for granted. Nigeria is effectively in a crisis situation. It has been like that for quite a while, but it's intensifying. So this is the problem that we are, as regards the Labour Party, you told me that the Labour Party chairman, who is eminently qualified to speak for Labour, I told you about Labour being in opposition. As far as the opposition can thrive in Nigeria, we will do that. But the problems, these are just manifestations of an underlying disease. And until you address this as such, you are not going to go anywhere. Look, the presidency that we have today, right, will remain the most destabilizing factor of the Nigeria system. The pursuit of that presidency, they don't take any prisoners. There is this desperation, the mad race to do. In its pursuit, you leave nothing to chance. So you've got to do something about that presidency. That it becomes a zero-sum game. People will go to any extent to get to, they will subvert the entire system. To achieve it. So it's not. So those are the areas we need to look at. It's not, what Labour Party chooses to do or not do, or what the obedience, do or what. Obedience will always find its feet. And if I were to talk about obedience anyway, going forward, this is not the place for me to be discussing that. Now we have a respite to go and sit down with one another and reflect, on the way going forward. But the context, the Nigerian situation is antithetical, to all those kind of positive aspirations. The Nigerian context is antithetical. It contradicts it. It will always assail it at every point in time. Whatever good intentions that as we speak today, and I gave you examples. We have 3 organs of government: the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. And so, can anybody say that the behavior of those 3 organs in the since May this year, and of course before that, has been something that you are proud of, or that should be applauded? You cannot have a good judiciary if you don't have a good National Assembly. Neither can you have a good executive. So they are all interrelated. And unless and until Nigeria confronts this problem that way, holistically, you are not going to go and get to anywhere. It's as simple as that. It is science. Those who made the Independence Constitution, they were not mindless. The Independence Constitution was not made in a vacuum. It was in response to the potentials of Nigeria, the complexities of Nigeria. That is the thinking that went to it. Thereafter, I have not seen any thinking. We have been going the other way. contradicting what that independence constitution. So if you keep doing that, you are going to pay the price. You will not you cannot. You have a formula for doing what is right, and then you abandon that formula and start going the other way, and now saying that okay, things are not going well. Let us pick this one and do this. Let us pick this one. It doesn't work like that, right?
Mr. Akin,
So
Mr. Akin Osuntokun.
that's the sum of.
Mr. Akin Osuntokun, Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.